Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Engagement Podcast. I'm Kim Wilkinson here with my good friend and co-host, Sheila Shorten. Hi, Sheila. How are you?
Hi, Kim. I'm doing good. Sunday afternoon. It's nice to see you.
Awesome. And for those of you that are watching, we do pre-record these. So today is Sunday, April 28th. We're airing these every second Saturday. And with both of us having busy schedules, this is the best way that we can come together, share some wisdom, some ideas, and some healings at times. And today, because we've been quite busy and haven't had a chance to really focus on a specific topic, we're going to the cards. We've done this in the past, and it has always resulted in great conversation, lessons. I'm curious to see what the cards are going to pull today. We're using the Soul's Journey deck. Some of you may be familiar with this. I call this the deck of truth because it really, I always find this deck forces us to talk about what really needs to be talked about to face our truth. So let's see. Sheila, I'm actually going to have you tell me when to stop shuffling, and then we're going to pull that top card and see right there. Okay. Discipline. I can accomplish what I set my mind to. This is so good. This makes me think of the word practice, being disciplined and practicing. Sheila, I don't know. I'm gonna let you share first a little bit what comes to mind for you when you see this card, when you hear the word discipline, and when you see I can accomplish what I set my mind to.
That one's specific. That one's very specific. It doesn't really let you off the hook, is what I'm seeing. It's like, if you want to create something in your life, you need to be specific about it. If you want more abundance, if you want a partner in your life, if you want to lose weight, if you want to get healthy, all of those things require discipline. And even though we, as humans, we resist that. We resist anyone telling us what to do. We resist anything that says, I've got to be different. We tend to have a lot of resistance to that idea. But I don't know about anyone else, but the only way that I've ever accomplished anything in my life is through discipline. Through waking up at 6 a.m. and going to the gym, through waking up and going into yoga, whatever it is. When I'm disciplined, I can create and maintain what I desire. So discipline for me is something that I probably am the most resistant to, because I don't want to think that something outside of me can tell me what to do. I sort of perceive it as that. But really, when I soften to the idea is very specific. The idea is very positive, and the idea really does create results for me. So for me, discipline means that I have to take on a cause, take on an idea, and move towards that.
Right. Commitment. Yeah. Persistence is the other thing that comes up for me with that. And I feel like that's almost my theme for today, even too. As many of you know, well, both Sheila and I work with energy, spiritual healing, that sort of thing. And we teach and share a lot. And today I really had to consciously choose to practice what I preach. And we're going through some family stuff this weekend and a few other, we've got kind of a few things going on that are stressful, that are a little bit chaotic. And I'm not going to lie, even earlier today, I thought, and I did message Sheila, I said, I don't know, maybe we should cancel. I'm just energetically drained from all this stuff that's going on, and maybe we should reschedule. And I thought, no, okay, you know what? I need to go for a walk. I need to ground myself, release some energy, and stay focused. And I'm so glad I did, because we came on and we had a great conversation, and I'm excited to be here. I'm motivated to continue on with my other free masterclass I'm doing tonight. But it was that choice I made to continue to be persistent, to stay disciplined, and to move through whatever I'm going through, from a place of love and to not fall into the suffering. And I'm so glad I did. I feel so much better for doing that. Having said that, I know it's really hard, especially when people are in a really dark place or when they're in that place of suffering. It can be very difficult to discipline yourself or to even motivate yourself. And I just want to say, you know what? It's okay to say, you know what? I can't do this today. That's okay. Where it becomes a problem if that becomes your statement every day. And that's sort of what's coming up for me right now is, you know, with discipline comes, I think, the ability to recognize, you know, am I doing this for my best interest? Is my best interest today to have rest and extra time to take care of myself? Then if so, that's okay. But if I've committed to something I want to achieve, I also have to take action to get there. And the other thing that comes to mind with that is to not give up, because there are times when we get these big expectations in our mind as to how something should happen and when it should happen. And if it doesn't happen the way we want or when we want, sometimes it's easy to give up. We can't give up. We have to keep trying. Maybe there's a better way. Maybe it's just not the right time. But the only way to get to where you want to go is to stay disciplined and focused and hold yourself accountable. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, like holding yourself accountable, because really, like, am I going to hold you accountable? Right? Probably that'll create more resistance if I say you have to do this. So really, who's the best one to hold you accountable is yourself. You know, living to your own standards. And it's funny that that's coming up, because I taught a yoga class this morning, and these themes always just come to me, and they just come in with the awareness of the moment. And when we're in Shavasana, this theme came to me that we actually know. We know. And when you're in Shavasana, you know. And if anyone's practiced yoga and has been in Shavasana, you're not questioning anything. You're in a state of knowing. It's a space of, you know, being truly connected to who you really are. And when you are truly in that space of knowing, then nobody needs to tell you. Kim and I don't need to tell you to go to the gym. Kim and I don't need to tell you to, you know, go to your doctor, whatever it is that, you know, to stay disciplined. You can find your way there.
Mhm.
You know your own truth. And that's the thing, the piece that I think that we never really were taught. I don't think as a small child anyone said to me, trust what you know. What is your body asking for? Do you need to go run to the end of the block and come back? Is that what your body needs right now? Nobody ever taught me to trust my intuition and have my own discipline for what I need. So that's something I've had to come to as a 60-year-old woman, and understand that discipline is the way. And I was disciplined in a lot of ways in my life, but there's a lot of ways I wasn't, of course. But for some reason, we somehow have that internal knowing and sort of follow it in a way. But if it was more mentored and was more, if we were more aware of it, like which Kim and I are trying to do, bring it to awareness for people, not because we want to tell you something, because we just want to make it aware to you, to be aware of it, that this is your truth. This is your own knowing. This is your own discipline.
I love that you brought that up, and it's making me think more about the specific word mind in here. I can accomplish anything I set my mind to, and it takes me back to when I was in Thailand recently, and I think I shared, we had an opportunity I had an opportunity to spend a whole day in these teachings with a senior monk, and he honestly didn't teach me anything I hadn't heard, but he shared it in a way that I became so much more knowledgeable about it. And I can't remember exactly how he said it, but he talked about, the mind isn't our head. Our mind is like our consciousness. But I think sometimes we think of the word mind and we think of our head, that our mind is here. But like you said, it's our consciousness, our mind, our awareness. And I think that is an important thing to be aware of and to try to understand, because this is what gets us into trouble often, right? We overthink, or we let, the ego or fear take us into worries and beliefs and excuses. Whereas if we can live our life from our mind, from our consciousness, our truth, which is more connected to love instead of fear, we're going to be a lot more successful. See, I love that reference of being in Shavasana. And, for a lot of people, that's probably one of the only or few times in a day where people are present, because we are so distracted. And that's what I love about Shavasana, is it's just, the stillness. And that is so beautiful. And I think that's something that so many people are lacking these days, is just presence and stillness and connection to, like you said, the consciousness. I feel like we should pull one more card and go deeper down the rabbit hole on that one.
Let's do it.
Okay. Again, I'm going to have you tell me when to stop shuffling.
Stop.
And before we pull that, was there anything else you wanted to add about any of that?
No, I think we covered it. I mean, it's a pretty simple awareness. It's a simple discussion. And I don't think anyone, as any human, doesn't understand that concept. I think they do. But it's like you said, when you pull it up and you bring it forward, then it gets to land with them in a different way. Whoever's listening to this can accept it and receive that message in a way that really is responsive to what they need to do.
Yeah, exactly. As I pull this card, I feel like it's coming up for people who may be watching, who are in that resistance that you were referring to before. The card is denial. And
Yeah.
it says, I acknowledge my fear, but I replace it with the insight of awareness. So again, it's exactly what we just talked about. So for those of you that are in denial, are feeling resistant, this conversation, this podcast is for you. Replacing with insight and awareness. I've been putting together content for a training that I'm doing actually next weekend, and it's a lot around, well, it's quantum healing, but it's also around understanding, body, mind, soul, understanding the ability to let go, which for me is the base of any and all healing. Without that ability to let go, I don't know if healing can happen. I'm not convinced it can. My now beliefs, because my beliefs have changed a lot over the years. I was a person who was in denial. I was a person who limited myself, who blamed others, who had no discipline. And it wasn't until I started to open up to other possible perspectives that I started to finally heal and grow. And I think it's our human nature. We don't ever want to be wrong. We never want to be, nobody wants to admit that. I can say I have been wrong a lot of times. And I think when we can admit that we're wrong, that is growth. And the truth is, in so many cases, whether it's in relationships or career or health or finances or government or community, there's no one right or wrong. There's what's right for you, there's what's right for me, and that could be different. And what's right for me now might not be right for me 5 years from now. And if we don't open ourselves up to other possibilities or perceptions, perspectives, we are never going to change. We're never going to grow. We're going to stay stuck where we are. And for me, denial is the unwillingness to look at what's wrong, the unwillingness to look at perhaps I'm responsible, if that makes any sense. And the denial keeps us in suffering. Like we've talked about, I think, well, Sheila and I talked about this just before getting on the call, and I sort of wrapped my head around this concept earlier today that none of us creates our own pain, but we all 100% create our suffering in how we respond to it. And it took me a long time to wrap my head around that, but I completely understand that now. I embody that. I've experienced it. And I see how, because I was in denial, because how I was not disciplined, I suffered. I suffered, and that was my doing. It was nobody else's doing. But I used to blame everybody else, anybody else, and not take responsibility for my healing because I was in denial. And when I finally started to look past that, to become more insightful and aware, that was a turning point for me. How about you, Sheila?
Denial for me is our suffering. You know, it's plain and simple, like you said. Our pain is not our responsibility. Someone saying something to us or someone doing something to us, that's not our responsibility, but how we accept that and how we receive that is our own suffering. And in denial, what we're doing is we're saying that we don't have any responsibility for that. Our denial is saying that, you know, you did this to me, therefore I suffer. However, you did this to me is one thing, how I respond to it is another. So if I simply cut it off where you give it to me and send it back, it's not mine, it's yours. Your unkindness, your whatever you know put on me, the minute I decide to receive it, to decide that it's mine, now it's my responsibility. And that's our denial. Our denial comes right at that point of contact. Our denial comes right there when we say, how dare you? When we say, how could you? When we have all those statements around someone doing something to us. And that is, to me, the suffering of the entire planet. That is the suffering of myself. It's the suffering of countries. It's the suffering of, you know, everything. So imagine an animal, like if you saw an animal in the wild and, you know, the lion came to attack the wolf or whoever it's attacking. And if the wolf carried on with that day after day, that lion tried to attack me. How dare that lion? That wolf would be debilitated and wouldn't get anywhere. It wouldn't, and eventually it would be taken over. I mean, that's nature, human nature. But yet as humans, for some reason, we haven't caught on to that. That's sort of a disconnect in our culture. It's a disconnect where we think that what someone says about us, what someone you know, tells us or whatever is now ours, and now we need to suffer with it. And when are we going to wake up to that? Because that is the entire planet's suffering, and it is our denial that we could choose. We could choose something completely different. So for me, that took a long time. I mean, I don't know, like I remember sitting with my girlfriends and talking about my boyfriend, and he did this and he did that. And then the other girl would talk about her boyfriend, and yeah, that guy did that. And, you know, we had to have this whole circle of suffering. And then I sort of started to pay attention to what I was doing. And then we had a laugh that we did that. And then we look back and we're like, wow, that was craziness that we did that. And then we just continued to evolve. But why did we even start there? Why did we even have to start there? Why did we have to even be in that little bit of suffering? Because I believe that it's not necessary. You don't have to be those 20-year-old girls talking about your boyfriends and how they're making your life miserable. And, you know, if they're making you so miserable, what are you doing there? Is my point. You know, there's nothing holding the gun to your head to say, hey, you got to stay in this relationship. So, I guess it's an evolution, but when are we going to be evolved?
Yeah,
When are we going to be
interesting.
evolved?
I like that you reference the animals too, because we could learn so much from nature, right? Like
Mhm.
you're right. Like a deer has a close call even with us on the road. You know, they're not coming after us. They're not losing sleep because we almost hit them. Um, and you know, we understand this, but we don't practice it, right? And how I explain it is, you know, if you go and put your hand accidentally on the stove element when it's on, you pull your hand away right away because it's hot and it hurts, right? Um, we don't go back the next day and see that and go, you know, put your hand there and, oh, that really hurt yesterday. You know, like we don't keep doing it, but we do. We do it emotionally all the time, right? And it's that not letting go. Um, yeah, so interesting. And you're so right. There's so much of that happening in the world right now, all over. Um, we're seeing it in every country. We're seeing it in relationships. We're seeing it in government. Um, and we need to do something about it. We need to take responsibility for ourselves, right? And it's coming back to the simple truths and the law of nature, like you said. And for me, the way I think of it is, okay, we've got this huge fire on the planet right now, and we have the choice. We can be water or we can be fuel, right? And if we're fuel, we're burning ourselves. If we're water, we're protecting ourselves, and we're also helping to reduce the fire on the planet. And it comes back to that, you know, insight and awareness and being able to make the conscious choices to stay disciplined so that I can be the healthiest and happiest and best version of myself, because only from there am I going to be happy. Nobody else is going to do that for me, like you said. And from there, I have the ability to hopefully help others experience that too. But how easily we get pulled out of that and jump into the fire, jump into that can of gasoline and choose that energy. Yeah. What do you think? One more?
Yeah, but I was just going to say to that too, it just reminds me of a book I read years ago called The Four Agreements. And one of my friends was just telling me, oh, I read this book called The Four Agreements. And I'm like, I remember that book. And I probably read that book. I think I read it 4 or 5 times when I got it. Like I just was fascinated by it. But one of the agreements is don't take anything personally. And that's like being in full awareness that what someone tells us or what someone says to us, even if it's horrible and even if it's unkind and even if it's difficult, is not to take it personally. To be in denial is to say that that's now mine. To be in denial is to say that what you said to me was so hurtful and so unkind, now it's mine. And that's being in denial about your truth. Your truth is you don't have to take anything personally and you don't have to take on anyone's comments. So
Yeah.
I just, yeah, that book kind of came up for me when you were speaking. So
I'm
you've
glad
probably,
you shared that. Yeah, that's
yeah.
so true. And because I know I spent a lot of years, you know, in the suffering of that, of others, whether their actions, words, behaviors. I can remember a time, and this is when I knew, okay, I finally figured this out. And it was several years ago, but and I can't even remember exactly what the circumstances were, but there was, you know, stressful stuff going on, and my husband was, you know, having a hard time dealing with it emotionally, and he wasn't himself. And he's usually not a grumpy person, but he was just really out of sorts and kind of, he might have been a bit snappy. Anyway, he came home from work one day and he said, I'm sorry I've been such a jackass lately. And it just came out of my mouth. I said, well, don't apologize to me, apologize to yourself, because I'm having a good day. You're the one that's not. Right. And then he kind of looked at me and I kind of thought, well, where did that come from? But it was this new insight, this new awareness. Right. And that
Mhm.
was powerful for me because I remind myself of that all the time. Even this weekend, as we're going through some more challenges within family, you know, people are dealing with grief and they're dealing with it differently. And it's the reminder to myself that, okay, you know, I can accept where they're at. I can't change where they're at, but I can also choose. Am I going to allow myself to go into that energy, or am I going to just remove myself from that energy and stay disciplined to where I want to be and what I want to experience? And it's not to say we don't care about others, but we have to care for ourselves, right? The only way I can still be of the best support or service to my family is to be the best version of myself. Yeah. So I like that story. I remind myself, you know, when others are upset, like you said, it's not about me, but we choose to make it about us a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Life is fascinating.
Yeah. You're pulling one now to sum it all up now, Kim?
Yep. Last one.
Okay, let's sum this one up because
I'm just gonna cut it right in the middle of this one.
perfect.
I knew this one was gonna come up today. Grief. And it is, this is summing it up because for me, well, I'll just read the bottom. It says, I understand that losing something is an opportunity to appreciate it. And you know, grief is the underlying emotion of everything that we've been talking about. The denial, you know, the lack of being disciplined. At the root of our suffering is grief. And grief is something that is a part of life. It is always, always, always going to be a part of life. We just sadly have not been taught how to properly navigate grief. We've been taught the opposite. We've been taught to avoid and distract and to not connect with grief at all. But grief is a natural process and part of life. And if we go through it, we come out on the other side. And Sheila and I have talked about this to death with our personal stories and journeys of grief, the losses that Sheila has experienced, the losses I've experienced. And grief doesn't have to take you down. But if you stay in denial, if you're not disciplined, you will never, ever escape grief. But it is possible. For me, I found gratitude in my grief because that is where I found growth. That is where I found healing, was through my grief. It was my greatest teacher. Sheila, I'll just let you share.
Yeah, I mean, like that's pretty significant that it comes up, and especially in that order. You know, we discussed, you know, the discipline, then the discipline. What was next? I already forgot.
It was the denial.
The denial. And then the grief. And Kim's right, like, and grief could be someone passing. Grief could be the idea that, you know, someone beautiful in your life, someone that you really cared about passed away, or someone in your family. But grief could also be other experiences. It can be letting go of, you know, the way it used to be. It can be letting go of old ideas and old thoughts and old patterns. And I feel like, you know, some of you know this from my story, is that I've had cancer. And I feel like a lot of the grief surrounding that was letting go of how it should be. Mm-hmm. Because I shouldn't have cancer, according to me, according to my denial, you know? So my grief has been in letting go of the way I think life should go. And I think that's maybe, if you put that perspective on everything, like you lose someone that you love very, very dearly. That's not how it should be. That's our idea of how it should be. And I think grief comes from the fact that we decide that we want it differently, that it should look differently. And my grief, not to say that I'm through it, because there's still complications with my situation, And I'm still grabbing and still trying to grab onto the old in the way I think it should be. But I know it's lessening its hold on me, but I think really what it is for me is to let what is be, to let the way it is and let the way it's showing up be, because there's so much beauty in that. And if someone was to ask me, how much good came out of your cancer and how much bad came out of it, well, the bad is, I got cut open and lost an organ and all those things. That's bad. But what's good is that I woke up. There was lots I woke up to. There was lots I can see. There's lots I changed my perspective on. There was so much more that was good and all of that. So why would I want to not have that experience when there was so much good about it? So I think this grief really is a process of really accepting what is and letting it be what it is, letting it be painful, letting it be, difficult, letting it be all those things so that you can find all the good that's in it.
That's so beautifully said. Yeah, just being in that place of allowing, right? Allowing, accepting, and letting go. Beautiful.
And it doesn't take away the challenges of it. It doesn't take away that you're going to miss that person dearly, or it doesn't take away that you're going to, walk crunched over because your insides were taken out. Like, there's a lot of pain with a lot of this stuff, but the grief itself and the difficulty itself is part of the whole darn experience. It's part of the whole goodness of it all.
Exactly. Like I
Mhm.
said, we're not responsible for our pain, but we're responsible for the suffering.
Yeah.
So we can either choose to suppress our grief and let it eat away at us and develop into illness, disease, or we can be disciplined and connect with our grief. Everything is energy. Emotions are energy. Energy needs to move. So allow and let go. And there we find freedom. There we find healing. There we find growth. Yeah, I love those cards.
Yeah, that was really good. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, Sheila, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and perspective and teachings. And thank you to everybody who has been following us and watching. We want to know, what questions do you have? What topics do you want to explore? Do you want to be a guest on our show? Reach out to us. Follow us here on the YouTube channel. We're still also very active on our Facebook page, the Spiritual Engagement Podcast. And we look forward to more episodes with you. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Have a great day, Sheila.
Bye.